I've been reading this news site called The State of Brand by this lady, Melissa Rosenthal, who was one of the early on people that established Cheddar and then built out this like content marketing department for Monday.com, which made them super viral and just a really, really talented content creator. And this article hit me that I this is mostly stuff I read for my own marketing prowess. But she wrote an article called that the title is "Companies Are Hiring AI Employees," in quotation marks, by the thousand. Do they need culture? And the subtitle is, "Every vendor wants to sell you an agent that acts like a coworker. What they leave out is that an agent with no culture is just your brand freelancing in front of customers at a scale you can't watch." And that right there hit home on what feels like a lot of the fears around hiring agents, putting them to work, particularly in maintenance, which is such a sensitive thing. So I want to tell you a little bit about this article and tell you some things that I've learned on this front here. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. So let's start right there. This idea that if you're being sold a coworker, right, you're being sold somebody that's on your team, but it's someone that's going to be interacting with clients at a scale that you can't follow up on, what are the guardrails? I think if we're thinking about culture as feelings and ping pong tables and all these different kinds of things, it's not applicable. But in reality, underneath the statement that this title is making is the idea of like, what is culture, right? And this is an article about brand, and it's talking about, brand as an operating system for how you communicate. But if you think about what your culture actually is in your company, I would say culture is defined by core values. And when I think of core values, I think of, these are the rules that we all agree to live by and act by, and this is the fair way to play the game. So culture ends up being essentially like the guardrails that maintain the promise that you're giving, similar to a brand, which is why I think it's so applicable here. So what are we talking about that when it comes to a teammate? When it comes to a teammate, culture is, like, if we bring it down to this feeling of like, if we have a fun culture, then we expect everybody that interacts with us to be fun and to be a great experience, right? Like a moment maker, right? Like the second nature comes to mind in something like that. So culture starts to be this kind of like governing way of behaving. And I think at that point, it starts to really apply to AI agents, right? Like, it makes sense why maybe you haven't thought of it as, I need my AI agent to have culture, and if it can't have culture, then I don't trust it. But what makes a ton of sense is like, dude, if I don't know how this like AI receptionist is going to talk to someone, and they're going to be talking to like 50 people at the same time of day, so I can't listen to every phone call, or I'm going to listen to, or if this like AI agent is troubleshooting with somebody, how are they going to make that person feel, right? That to me is the disconnect of when people say, I want to keep the personal touch in this, so I don't want to do AI. What they're really, really saying is, I'm not going to trust an AI with like how someone really is made to feel, which to us starts with this idea of training the AI on empathy, right? Like, we talk about these multiple different types of agents that we have inside of Vendoroo, and they each have like a different like baseline kind of like way of communicating. An AI agent that's meant to talk to residents is being trained on like de-escalation and empathy and this like kind way of communicating ahead of time, while that's not necessarily the way that you want to talk to your vendor, right? Like with your vendor, you want to talk like very clear, very confident, like this is what's happening. I know what's going on. This is what you need to get there. Like no extra fluff, right? They're trying to like get through their day and not have to like read through many things. It's like efficient communication. Same with your team, right? When you're being reported to, right? So like, I think that's something that most people don't really think about. It's this idea that this isn't just about having an agent that's able to communicate but it is how you actually want it to communicate. And that's a fair question to ask if you're going to be using an agent. If you're building your own, how are you going to build it into it? If you're buying it from someone, you want to be asking them like, hey, how is this thing talk? Is it going to sound like me? And that's a very, very fair question to ask. The next piece is, how do you implement culture in your own business, in your actual employees, right? Like, I think the reason why so many people are so afraid of work from home is because of like this inability to like create this culture, right? Like, how do you get people? I think the common wisdom is culture is just like when you're around people, you just kind of like absorb it through osmosis and you get to learn it and this and that. I think really astute business operators realize that like you got to design your own culture. You got to do things like having core value call outs at all hands meetings, and you have to have these like these core values that are like really present in your decision making, and you train on core values and you hire on core values and you continue to recall them when you're making decisions, and you use them as like a rubric to make decisions, and then you go back to it and highlight to your team how this decision was made based on core values and that's why it won, or this person had this behavior based on it, right? Like, that's very, very real. And I think that many property managers have gone through this when trying to adopt like the remote teammate worker model, right? Like, whether you are all in office or you are, or you know, whether you are fully remote or you are like a hybrid model that you have some people that are in your office and remote, you've learned that you need to like keep the remote team as part of your culture. And if you haven't done that, I highly suggest you do, right? Like, I think that's the common wisdom that you're going to learn from people is creating these like ways of doing that. I think of Pete Newbig is really good about talking about this type of stuff with VPM. But how does that apply to agents, right? Like, how does that apply to an AI, right? So we've gotten past this idea of like, yes, no, duh, like an AI doesn't actually have feelings. They're not actually going to like be your buddy, but you want them to communicate with people and make them feel the way that that you've learned to like make people feel, the way that you've taught your team to make people feel. That's why it's really important that when you are onboarding an agent, that you are not just kind of like taking it out of the box, but you set up actual structured time to give it feedback, right? If you think about this like mistake that everybody make, and it's the number one mistake we see, is to not treat your AI agent as a teammate. They think that it should be ready to go out of the box, doesn't understand why it can't do certain things, and they might like think it's like a set it and forget it thing. That's a big mistake, right? We see that the people, you know, like, first of all, you have to be able to, no matter how well trained it is when it's first done, like when it's first given to you, it's going to be trained in the way that, like for Vendoroo, it's the way that we think it should be, but it's not, that might not be exactly how you think it should be trained, right? Like, if you go and hire your competitor's best maintenance coordinator, they're going to show up with like the skill set to do the job, but they're going to show up with the skill set to do the job and the know-how of doing it exactly how their previous boss wanted it done. That might not be exactly how you want it done, right? So how do you correct that? How do you guide that? You have regular one-on-one meetings with that person, right? Like, you have feedback sessions. You give that employee feedback. It's the same thing with an agent. You know, an agent has to have, the way that it's built has to allow you to give it feedback as naturally as possible. This isn't software. This isn't submit a ticket and wait for, you know, like the roadmap to get updated 6 months later. That has to be like in the moment ways for you to say, oh, you just responded to someone this way. I would prefer if you responded it that way, right? There has to be a clear interface for you to be able to do that. For us, that interface is PMRoo. Like, you get to directly chat to your agent and continue to train it. And then on top of that, there has to be a place where your culture documents, right? Like, the things that you do live, right? This is the judgment layer, right? And the way that the judgment layer learns from the feedback you give it is instrumental. So you want to be like very in tune with that piece. It's really easy to just create workflows and then be like, boom, you have automation because an agent can go execute a workflow. For an agent to actually perform the way that you want it to perform when things aren't perfect, it's the context and decision-making layer that most matters, right? So these agents can't just be built as like, here's a workflow, go execute it, and that can be called automation. But then now you're counting on things being exactly how they should be in property management. And we all know that that's just not the case every single time, right? Like that might get you to like a 60-65% level of automation, but these like fringes, these moments that happen that aren't going exactly as planned, the agent needs to have a way to give answers and continue to like solve a problem, like this, like the escalation paths need to be there. That needs to live somewhere else in another brain that you get to train as well, right? So now you have, if you think about this from a culture standpoint, you have your core values, and you rarely update your core values, but you might be helping people contextualize how to act on those core values based on these new situations that arise, right? So like the ease of being able to do that is key to this being actually yours and being your culture, right? And it's the people that are really thinking about that are gonna give you that feeling of empowerment, that feeling of like, this is truly one of my agents. So what we see, the numbers tell us this, right? Like the people that get to these high levels of automation, the majority of the world is stuck at this like 65%. And our clients that come on and don't break through that 65%, they tend to churn, right? Because they just see this as like, okay, this is just like another thing, but it's not really changing everything. It hasn't been a thing. The people that really succeed, we have a KPI for it. They give 2 times the feedback to their agent than the people that don't succeed. That makes sense, right? Like if you're onboarding somebody that's super, super talented in the first like 30, 60, 90 days, the more time you spend with them, the more that you're able to like look at their work and tell them what they're doing, the better that they're going to understand how to act when you're not around. And that is culture, right? Like how people act when you're not around and how people like integrate into your processes. That's the culture of your company. So it was just an interesting article to read to then put this back through this, right? Like the people that are going to win with this are truly seeing the AI agent as an employee, and therefore all the things that you care about with an employee should apply, right? Like there should be like a direct correlation with the things that apply with succeeding with a new employee as with succeeding with an agent in its own format. I think the closest correlation to it is remote teammates, right? Like an agent should be as similar to a remote teammate as possible. A remote teammate is not going to learn culture through osmosis. You got to teach it culture. A remote teammate is going to show up with a skill set, but not know exactly how you want it to operate. Like in your company, you're going to have to teach it that, right? And it's the AI provider that creates like the easiest interface, right? That first of all has this in mind, right? So this idea of like coming pre-trained with empathy for talking to clients, for residents, and like clarity and certainty when talking to vendors, and whatever other nuances, right? Like our AI agents that are made to talk to owners have a different level of empathy than the ones of residents, because we know it cares differently. The ones that report internally has a different kind of like style of communication default as the one with the vendor. So asking how they've thought through that. For us, our secret weapon is David Normand, who has run maintenance at all these different levels. It's been his brain that we first started with. And then now we've gotten to see the joy of everybody kind of like fixing things to their own way, because not only does it come pre-trained with a certain type of culture that you should ask about, but there's also the interface for you to be able to do it as easily as possible, right? The same way that you would with a person. Hey, what happened here? Oh, that's what happened? Listen, next time do it this way because this is how we do things here. And that's the third piece. It's the way that you give feedback, right? Like you want to give an AI agent as much clarity and context as possible so it understands. So, like we recently had a webinar with Kogi from Dream Big, and he was like, man, I was talking to her like, why would you do this when it's against policy? That's not good feedback for an AI agent, right? Like the same way that it may not be good feedback for a human too. Instead, the feedback being, hey, why did you do this? Oh, okay, I see what you did there. The way that we normally act is this way, and it's because of this. And this is where you find that, right? Like that piece starts to get embedded into the contextual decision-making layer that allows you to like develop less workflows, but give the AI more decision-making and more power, because it's not just learning what it has to do, it's learning why it's doing that. And at the end of the day, that is learning your culture. So here's my big takeaway from this article, my aha moment. My aha moment is that I used to, when I would hear people saying, I don't want to do AI because we are personal touch people, I don't want to take the personal touch out of it, I used to just like kind of like dismiss that. I used to be like, I don't think this person gets it. I don't think this person realizes that at the end of the day, AI's job is that it's going to do all the things that don't need personal touch, that just need to get done so that you can really truly drive personal touch in the things that really matter, that really move the needle. At the end of the day, people just want their problems solved as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But now what I hear is, if someone says that, is how can I trust that an AI agent that I can't supervise at scale, because it's by design made to work at a scale that humans can't, and that's why the whole value prop exists here, how can I trust it to have the same culture that I implement into like my company, that I've taught my employees, that I've built my reputation on? And you, if that's what you think, you're not wrong. That is 100% how you should feel. I just had never thought about it that way. The insight is the same way that you think about teaching your remote teammates and your teammates, and really your remote teammates culture, is the same way that you got to teach your AI agent culture. So if you want to get on the AI train, if you want to, build agents that talk to your residents and your vendors and even your owners and stuff like that and your leads, it is a fair question to ask. But instead of dismissing it as like, I don't want to lose the personal touch, ask the AI agent provider or ask whoever is going to like build something for you or whatever, how do we build culture into this? How can I get it? Like, how can I, number one, what kind of communication style does it come with? And that's got to make sense to you. Number two, and they got to have an answer for that. Number two, how do I then teach it myself to be able to, learn better and really refine into like exactly my culture? And number three, hey, how do you support me in onboarding this agent, teaching it my culture, giving it feedback? Are you going to be there to hold my hand to teach this thing, help me do it or not, right? Because if not, then it's going to feel like your first time that you hired a remote teammate, right? Like, there's going to be a learning curve to that. So yeah, I thought this was really, really interesting. And the answer to, now that we are onboarding agents as teammates, do they need culture? To me, is a resounding yes. And I hope you agree too.